welcome to the Most Excellent 80s Movies podcast on the Most Excellent Podcast Network. It's the podcast where a filmmaker and a comedian get invited on an adventure into a world of big foreheads, nonsense words, greedy old hucksters, space tantrums with fabulous scepters, reluctant, and I mean really reluctant warriors, and of course, the 80s movies we love and hate, and for some of us, are seeing with 2018 eyes for the very first time. This is episode 16, The Last Starfighter, a movie selection from 1984 and part 2 of our You've Never Seen That double feature.
Come on, Alex, they're here!
Alex Rogan had a dream.
You really are leaving here, aren't you?
To be as far away from here as possible.
You get your chance. When it comes, you gotta grab it with both hands.
It started with a game.
You're gonna bust the record.
But it wasn't just any game.
You have been recruited by the Star League to defend the frontier against Zur and the Kodan Armada.
And then, one night...
Centauri's the name. We have to talk about a matter of utmost importance. Step into my office. I've seen him come and I've seen him go, but you're the best, my boy. Light years ahead of the competition.
Hey. Alex didn't find his dream.
Hey, look out! Oh, dear.
His dream found him.
Where are we? Welcome to Rylos, my boy.
A world on the brink of destruction.
You were recruited by the Star League to
defend the frontier against Zur and the Kodan Armada.
Of all the life forms, on all the planets, in all the galaxies,
Oh my God!
one has been chosen. Alex Rogan
Alex?
Hi, Max.
is the last Starfighter. For every Earthling who's ever imagined traveling beyond the stars
There is a Starfighter left.
I love you, Alex Rogan.
comes the unforgettable story of one who made it. The last Starfighter.
Bump, 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 bump.
So we've been doing a double feature of two movies, one that I've never seen before, and then one that you've never seen before.
That is correct.
So we did Chances Are with Robert Downey Jr. And then so this one was my pick, The Last Starfighter, which you had never seen.
That is correct.
So I made the prediction that this would not hold up well in our last episode, and I was proven wrong, at least in my opinion. I haven't seen this movie in 20 years, but this was my jam, or at least one of them when I was a little kid, and for some reason something happened, and I didn't see it for 20 years, and I felt like it held up a lot better than I thought it did.
Okay. That voice you're hearing is, of course, filmmaker Nathan Blackwell of the illustrious Squishy Studios.
It's weird when we introduce each other.
I know, you hate it.
I know.
You hate it so much.
Uh-huh.
But I do it every time. You don't have to introduce me. My name is Chrissy Lenz.
Improver, comedian.
And director of National
Raconteur.
Comedy Theater. So, yeah, I'd never seen this before. And I can definitely say that I think if you went into this with a love, then I could see thinking it holds up.
Mm-hmm.
And I could even see I could imagine a world where a kid who's being introduced to this by a parent could be influenced by the love of that parent to also get excited about this movie. And for me, I think that's what I saw when I was watching it. Like, I saw, okay, I get how little 80s kids would be totally into this, especially young boys. And I watched it with my own kids, and they were just like, yeah, okay. That's what that was. And I was also like, yeah, that was that movie.
You should punch your kids more often.
Well, and so here's the thing. So I did want to do like a little bit of a summary of it, because I'm sure everybody has seen this movie besides me. It's definitely one of those that I'm going to catch flack for, being the person who has not seen it, and then B, doesn't necessarily think that it's
well, it's one
fabulous.
of those. It's one of those kind of movies that falls into a category. It's like when, if you're a kid of the 80s, there's definitely movies that you're gonna see, but there's certain ones that will fall through the cracks if you just happen to not see a movie that month in the theaters or not catch it on HBO. Like, I feel like Inner Space is a good example of one of those kind of movies. Like, you could have totally caught it right at that time, or it could have just fallen in the cracks. Like, basically, below the top 10, top 15 must-see movies as a kid during that year,
right?
Then those movies below that have a chance of, like, falling through the cracks. And I feel
and they just miss you forever.
Yeah, or, yeah. And then maybe you catch it. Everyone talks about it, and then it becomes a thing, and it's like, well...
Yeah, I think that's definitely true. And there's just something about this that for me didn't have the pull or the appeal. I don't know if it was the video game angle. I mean, I think that must have been
in some ways the premise is more well known. Like, everyone knows the premise is like a kid plays a video game, and then he gets like a high score, and then basically these aliens recruit him to fight in the real war or whatever.
Right.
Like, it was a test. Like, there was even like Future Man, with Seth Rogen and his producing partner. They produced a thing that was basically the exact same concept.
The exact same.
And they also call it out. It's like, dude, no, that's the Last Starfighter. And I think popular culture, they know that, even if they haven't seen it.
Well, there's also the second book by the Ready Player One author, Armada, which is essentially the same thing as Last Starfighter.
Okay.
Right? It's the idea is you've been training your whole life, gamer kid. Mm-hmm. You just didn't know it.
You thought you had useless skills, and now you're the most important person in the galaxy.
Yeah, you nerd. Let's shine a light on you, because now you have what it takes to save the galaxy. And I guess maybe that didn't appeal to me, because I'm terrible at video games. So I'd be like, oh, well, you guys got this. Uh-huh. I'll hang out back here.
So I was at an arcade for my brother's birthday, Logan, who was on the Rambo episode. And it was on the wall, projected on the wall, while we played arcade. And then there was another movie on the other side. But I saw a couple of clips, and I was like, oh, I haven't seen these images in decades. This will not hold up. It's not the greatest movies. A lot of visual effects don't hold up. But I found myself surprised at some of the charm of some of the moments, some of the characters, some of the spirit. I mean, it's basically the Luke Skywalker story. Like, there's not a ton that's original. It's basically kind of the equivalent of a farm boy who wishes he can get out of town and make something of his life.
But the difference is, like, this farm boy is from the most supportive community that has ever existed.
Yeah.
Why anyone would want to leave the Starbright trailer park is beyond me, because that place is full of people who care about you, who will show up to support you. I mean, they're like, hey, he's winning the video game. Everyone comes out of their homes.
Everyone, he's going to beat the top score.
They all care so much. And then even later that night, they're like, that's a smart boy. He's going places. You keep your eye on that kid. Oh, Alex Rogan, he's our hero. And it's like, all he did was win a video game. It's
the one video game in town.
It's fine. But, like, the beginning of this movie...
It would have been great if there were 2 arcade games next to each other, and then, like, the Last Starfighter, like, blew out, and then, like, the little kid who wants to follow his footsteps is now playing the other game, which is, like, Burger Time or something like that.
It's that one
and he
where
gets the top...
throw beers.
Yeah. Right.
Tapper. Yeah. But the beginning of this movie is kind of like the beginning of Beauty and the Beast, right? He's walking through his town, or no, it's the girl is walking through this little trailer park community.
It's an interesting setting.
Everyone's out.
Yeah.
Everyone's out. They're all doing something, and they're all greeting each other
we don't
warmly.
understand that because right now it's 115 degrees.
Right.
So the idea of being outside is like, no, you're going to die.
Or even just everybody
on a summer
that
day.
lives in your community, like, being out where they could interact with you.
Right.
And knowing you and wanting to lend you a hand or whatever it is. It didn't 100% ring true for me. It's like, I gotta get out of here. This place is crushing my soul.
It's almost kind of like the equivalent of like a musical or something like that. Like everyone's out working on things.
Here comes the baker with his trays like always.
And instead they get the Music Man.
It didn't really make a ton of sense to me. Also, I think it's a little bit slow. So if you're anticipating the next fun moment, I was like, get on with it. I get it.
So I thought the build up was pretty nice in the beginning.
Okay.
And then once things get going, it's good. But then where it kind of slows down is I feel like it starts doing too many intercuts and too many subplots, and then really towards the end it starts giving too much attention to like so he gets a top score on the Last Starfighter video game.
Yep.
He beats 1 million points, and then what happens is that he gets selected. It was all a test to train pilots, and so he gets selected. But then when he's taken, they leave an android in his place, a beta unit.
Well, yeah, and they don't explain that right away.
Exactly, which I like because it's scary.
It is scary
There's
as hell.
There's a lot of... So one of the things I liked is that there's like a good 4 or 5 like creepy, scary moments in the movie that are that when you're watching as a young child,
that almost seem like Toxic Avengery.
It's definitely more kind of
trauma looking.
It's kind of nice to have like an adventure movie with a couple of like small little nightmare moments, you know? So like one of them is the android is still kind of forming itself and it's under the covers, and then it pulls the covers over when no one's looking, and it's still like forming its face, and it's gooey, and yeah.
It's like sucking in and out with its own breath, and it just looks like a pulsating corpse.
Yeah. And so those kind of moments definitely like stick in your brain when you're young. It's like, oh, like I remember like some of those moments, even if I don't remember like some of the characters.
He takes off his head, to monkey around the android. So, and I read that all of that stuff with the beta unit was all added afterwards because people responded to it, and they were like, "We want more of that." Yeah.
So towards the end, they were just cutting back to it too much, and it slowed everything down. Like I definitely felt like they added too much. Like some of it is good, and all the stuff they added was pretty charming on its own, but it definitely slowed down like the big kind of quest or mission that
I agree
that our Starfighter dude has towards the end.
And I agree that the parts with the little brother are adorable. And like, because like all the moments with the brother are kind of gross out moments where it's like, you shut up. His head is on the desk, and he's like, go back to sleep, Lewis. Like, I love an 80s little brother, but all of the moments with the girlfriend, and like she's trying to make out with him, and he's like, get out of here. This is not what I'm programmed for.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, they're at like Makeout Ridge where people are just rolling around. I was like, oh, this is not what I need in this movie.
Yeah.
It's not a sex romp.
Yeah, at that point, that's where I would have cut.
Started killing it off a little bit.
Yeah, that's the point where I was thinking that I wrote down. It's like Yeah, it was just slowing everything down. And it's probably one of those things to where it's like everyone's loving the beta unit, but they gave it too much. They put in too much chocolate syrup when they realized everyone loved it, and then it just kind of made everything else.
Well, can I also say something else it has too much of? Him not wanting to be a starfighter. It doesn't make sense. And like Luke Skywalker at some point is like, nope, I gotta go home.
Yeah.
Oh no.
It's okay.
No.
It was nice when he refuses, and then so let's rewind just a bit. So he's chosen to be a starfighter, but it's not like chosen by like the League of Starfighters. It's kind of like a salesman, merchant, con man.
He's a huckster.
Yeah, it's the Music Man from the Music Man. So the Music Man comes to town. He's got new tricks. And I really like...
And he's like, get into my car.
Yeah.
Don't ask any questions.
It'll be a great surprise. Trust me, I love surprises.
And the kid's like, yeah, sure.
Which I felt was a fun way of, if you had to have, like, you are selected to be the chosen one, that's a fun way to go, is to have kind of this Han Solo-y character who's really looking to make a buck off of him. Mm-hmm. And so he gets to the Starfighter Alliance or whatever it's called, and he realizes it's all real. There's an intergalactic war going on,
and he's not impressed by any of it.
Right?
This kid who like was dying to get out of his trailer park to like go to a city college is up in space now with aliens, and he's just like, would you just take me back to the trailer park?
He wasn't even impressed by it. So you know what I loved? There was like all these different aliens from all these different worlds and planets, and I loved like like the alien dudes with baseball caps.
Yeah.
It's like like these Squirtles with baseball caps.
They were all very like Zoidberg-y.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of tentacles.
Yeah, the designs were
cool. A lot of side
cool.
eyes.
Yeah.
And yeah, he's at no point like, wowee, this is what I've been dreaming of. He the whole time is like, would you get me out of here? I just got rejected by City College.
And you can do that once, but the problem is he does it like
102 times.
Yeah, and it's way too much.
Yep. Even right up until the last moment.
Yeah. No. So if this movie, the things that I would have changed in this movie, would be too much of the beta unit and the intercutting towards the end, and then take out the last time that he refuses to be a hero and refuses the call to adventure. They've already like set out on the adventure and they've blown a bunch of crap up, and they're getting ready to do the final thing, and it's like, no, I think I'm done. It's like I couldn't buy it. It's like, why is this being shoehorned in here? Like I felt like it was shoehorned in. Because, I mean, we've already have the rousing moment of, like, the two friends deciding to go into battle and they're going to make a difference. And and you can't...
They've bonded with each other and shared their story of loss.
Yeah, you can't backtrack on that unless it's like, oh, my God, I've got to save my girlfriend or I've, or whatever. Like, he can't just like, nah...
No, he's never at any point worried about the safety of the people back home.
Yeah,
even when he learns that there are going to be hit beasts, which, by the way, could we not have made one more pass on the writing? Could we not have tried just bring someone in there to give them better alien gibberish and just be like, really, hit beast, that's the best we could do? Wifoid, that's what we're going to call it? I lost my wifoid in the war. Oh my God.
That's amazing.
Eye roll. And the dude's name is dumb too. What's the dude's name?
Which one?
The Music Man.
The Music Man.
I keep wanting to call him Castiel, but that's
Centaur.
Centauri.
Centauri.
Yeah, because he refers to himself in the third person.
Yeah.
And so I was a bit confused. But yeah, he's not concerned about the safety of all the people who care about him so much back home. He's like, oh, we're going to leave them with this incompetent beta unit? Yeah, okay. Let's go so I can, once again, it should be called the Reluctant Starfighter, because he's never really thrilled about any of it. So here's the other thing I didn't understand. So all these aliens have big foreheads.
Oh,
right?
so there's all these like mask aliens, but then there's a group of the most aliens that we see are very human-like, so they save money on the makeup and the costumes. And also, so you see a human face that you can like identify with, but most of them have like enlarged
male pattern baldness.
male pattern baldness,
got
enlarged
Picard.
foreheads, and then the white hair on the side.
Yeah. And they are the
They're
ones
called the Picards.
who were embroiled in this war with the son of the leader guy, who I'm just going to call Space Joffrey.
Zur.
Zur, who is just about throwing tantrums, having the shiniest scepter, and pitching tantrums.
Yeah, British tantrums.
And what is he? He just wants to destroy everything.
Yeah, and I thought that was a neat way to go with, you could have just had, like, the others, like, the Kodan Armada. So, like, these Klingon-esque kind of dudes, we only believe in war, all of our ships are dimly lit, we wear red armor. Like, you could have just made them the bad guys. Like,
right.
it's the Huns, the Russians, or whatever. But it's interesting having them, but then having this Joffrey character also be on the same bridge and who's technically in charge, and to have the villains constantly squabble with each other is, I think, a lot better than if you didn't have that conflict.
Mm-hmm. And there are other stories that sort of employ that device.
Mm-hmm. Where basically, the villains got to have something to do other than, is our course still on the good guys? Yes. Continue your course.
Well done, destroying. Thank
Have
you
you polished the
very much.
weapons? Weapons polished, sir.
Great. We shot the tiny meteors that blew up the entire spacecraft. Again, another pass-through on the writing. The Death Blossom is the name of the
super secret weapon,
which is just them spinning.
Oh, so yeah, so one of the things with the Starfighters is that they've got these legendary, mythical, whatever ships, these gun stars.
The gun stars. Again, one more pass.
I thought the design of them were pretty cool. The problem is,
they all look like an ITT technical commercial, right? Come to ITT Technical Institute. You can make the Last Starfighter.
So this is there was one note. It's like, some of the CGI held up well, and then oh my god,
I was surprised by it.
Yeah, so this is early CGI.
Yeah.
I mean, only like 2 years ago was like the Star Trek: The Wrath of Khan was one of the first like big uses of like CGI with like the whole Genesis device thing, and so just 2 years later to have ships flying around in big, this is like a huge step up from like Tron, which was like 81, something like that. So this is like I guess Tron was 82. So this is like a huge leap forward. The problem is that there was, with this early CGI, it still didn't like lighting was a problem. Like it was everything is always perfectly lit. There's no motion blur, and some of it is, it's still not very mobile at this point. So some of the fights were not as quick moving as you kind of wanted them to be,
Right, but I could see like at that time just being like, wowie, it's roundish.
Yeah.
We've never seen anything dimensional, so I thought those were cool, and it would definitely make people want to be like, yeah, I'm going to learn how to do computer-generated images. And now we have what we have, it was super 80s. So 80s. So much 80s. And there was so much acting. Everybody was really just acting their faces off. They were like just really going for it. They were playing to the back of the room at a 10 the whole time, except for the main kid who was always at a 2. I think they like had auditions and they were like, I would like someone with the least amount of responsiveness to anything, to kindness.
We have to realize
aliens.
He's going to be playing a robot that's way more charismatic than he is.
Yeah, and has far more personality and more wants and needs. So, yeah. And then, he and the last alien guy, like, save the day. I loved that scene, too. So much acting of, like, the two guys they could get to be on the bridge of the enemy spacecraft, just, like, doing that Shatner thing of, like, whoa, whoa. You can tell he didn't rehearse it much. Because he's like, no, I'm going left. If I go left, then you have to come this way with... That's how shaking works. And they win. And then they just are like, Done. Does that sound right to you?
Not technically, but yeah.
There's only one Star Destroyer.
Yeah, there's only one Star Destroyer. This Armada is really only like
one boat,
30 ships, like fighters, and then one big thing.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a little anticlimactic, but I mean, you can't.
If he's not willing to go fight a bunch of other stuff, then
yeah,
I mean, you couldn't turn this into a Star Wars. Because...
Yeah, well, that's the thing. They didn't necessarily say that this was the entire Armada or whatever. This is just like the group that's coming to attack this planet. This is that attack. Like,
but it seems like small scale because all the starfighters are in one place.
Yeah. So this is like a big strike force. This is like the D-Day or whatever. It's like they've finally figured out where the starfighters' secret base is.
Okay.
And now they're going to roll over that, and then they're going to attack the main base, the main planet or whatever. So this is like that big attack planet.
This really seemed like any old day to me in the life of this Star adventure. Like, nobody seemed particularly urgent.
Yeah. I feel like it's because we really didn't get a ton of screen time with the whole Starfighter base and the people on it. Mm-hmm. We were kind of there and then out.
Yeah, because he wanted to dip out and go home. And then...
We really could have used a lot more time on some kind of character who was on that planet. Who
he might latch onto and care about, like Greg.
Yeah, put a human face on the war. Yeah, I would have made it Greg, because Greg, who looks exactly like Louis Gossett Jr. from Enemy Mine.
Exactly, yes.
So they basically don't even share much dialogue at all, except for when he wants to leave, until they're partnered together.
Right, because they're the last two.
Yeah, it would have been nice if they had. Yeah, if they had a little more of a banter or interaction, you could have taken some of that. Oh, this is my wifeling and my childrenlings. Wifeoids and childlings. Had that earlier, so that puts kind of some stakes or a face on this conflict
of everybody who died, because essentially
before they died too. Yeah.
With you on that. Also, later in the movie, when Centauri goes and fetches him and brings him back, he dies, saving the life of our hero. Mm-hmm. And then it's like this sad moment, but it's not really a sad moment because that kid did not give a shit or like him at all. Like, they were not friends. They didn't even have like a reluctant camaraderie. He did not like that guy, and that guy didn't like him.
He had a vague interest. That's the problem, is that we cared more about stuff than he did. We liked Centauri more than he did. We liked space more than he did.
And adventure and people not dying. But then later in the post-credits, it's not post-credits, the post-climax, they're like, oh, we've got a surprise for you. And they lead over this hooded figure and like rip the thing off. And he's like, Centauri, you're alive. And Centauri's like, of course I'm alive. I just had to recharge. Why, did you think I was dying? Yes. Yes, that's what we all thought. You're kind of a dick, Centauri. Like, you should have maybe mentioned that you weren't dying. And also, I don't really care that you're back.
Well, because he kind of just like, hey, guys, I'm back. And then movie is over. Dun, 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 dun.
Yeah, I'd be like, hey, let's bring Obi-Wan back. I didn't really die.
Yeah, it kind of lessened it. It was nice to see him again, but it didn't really mean anything.
Yeah, because, like, for me, I never got sucked into that relationship as being, like, a Han Solo Luke Skywalker or even an Obi-Wan Luke Skywalker thing. Like, that, they both just seemed like pretty indifferent sort of people. But I did like the part where he goes back to his trailer park and the little brother's like, can I come? No, get the hell out of here. I'm taking my girlfriend. And she also is like, I don't really know. I kind of like it here.
Are there even, like, restaurants?
I don't know. What will I wear? Will I have a job? Like, yeah. Do I have to be a wife-oid? What if I meet someone else? Like, I get it. But it was fine. I don't know. I just felt like the whole thing was just fine.
I think you were distracted. I don't know how or why, but I thought it was great. Other than all the things we agree on that are very obvious. No, so I felt like it had. There's this kind of movie where it's like, oh, let's remake Star Wars. Let's have some space in it. Let's have a kid who wants to, to leave the universe. He wants to be the chosen one. And there's like a cynical version of this, or a forgettable version of this. And I guess I was surprised at the charm of some of the characters, of the charm of the moments, and that it seemed like the people who made this were actually cared about it, you know? Whereas, I'm sure that there's a slew, especially during this time, where there's so many similar kind of knockoffs that just didn't have any of that kind of personality. And that's something that I was pleasantly surprised to find on this one.
Oh, okay. I hear you. So the budget was $15 million. It made $6 million in its opening weekend, and it looks like it made about 28, almost 29 million.
Okay.
Gross in the USA.
So it was not in the top 25 movies that year.
No, but people love this movie.
Yeah, no, I feel like home video is one. There's a lot of these movies that did not do super well on the initial box office. I was going through 84, 85, 86, stuff like that. I was super surprised that Labyrinth was a bomb.
Yeah. And so was Princess Bride.
Yeah, ridiculous. Like Psycho 3 made more than Labyrinth. Which is ridiculous.
People hated it. Hated it.
Yeah, I remember seeing that in the theater. I thought it was cool. But.
Yeah, I loved it. But yeah, you're right. And this is definitely a movie that there are cult following screenings for all the time. There are at least two this month happening in Arizona.
Oh man.
I think they play it at the Starfighter arcade every night. So people care about this movie. They do. And I get that. There are movies I care about that are equally
Yeah, one of the movies I'm interested. So I know I haven't seen the Last Starfighter in 20 years. One I haven't seen in 30 years has probably been The Black Hole, which I think is going to be more of a mixed bag.
I've never even heard of that.
You've never seen The Black Hole? Oh my god! So it's a Disney sci-fi movie, and then it's got this famous robot Maximilian.
Okay,
he's really cool.
Nope, not ringing any bells.
All right,
we'll have to do that one next time. We do a you didn't see it, I didn't see it thing.
we not. I think maybe what we need one that neither of us have seen.
Yeah, for sure. So
I mean, it's been so long that I've pretty much never seen The Black Hole in reality.
So one fun thing that I did find was that, and apparently it never happened, but in 2009, they tried to make a sequel that would either have been the brother Lewis traveling to Rylos to become a starfighter on his own. Or
finally he beat the top score.
He's just been there this whole time. Or it would have been Alex and Maggie's child who has
Zoid.
to settle a score with Zur.
Right.
And it never happened. And then I guess there was talk around the beginning of this year again of trying to do something else with it. And then those things just keep not getting off the ground.
Mm. So I also found out, so this is directed by Nick Castle, who wrote one of our first movies we did. He wrote Escape from New York.
Oh. Connection.
Ding. Yeah, I think, just not knowing him, but having seen some of his work and seeing him on some of the behind the scenes stuff for Escape from New York, I can kind of feel like this was his chance to do a big sci-fi thing.
Yeah, and I like his sensibility. I like the story. I'm interested in it. I think they just needed to let one other person take one more pass at the writing and trim up some of those moments.
It's tough to say, like, what are some of these things that, because, that were in the original concept or that were flawed, or if it was stuff from the screening process where they said, the studio loves the beta unit, let's shoot a bunch more of that.
Let's go back and redo it.
And suddenly now we need a reason, and so that kind of stuff, who knows how much of that was shoveled in there.
Then they're like, oh, well, we got to add more content to this in-space star battle, so I guess he has to not want to do it again.
Mm-hmm.
Although, I just think there must have been other solutions.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, so it's always tough with these because there's never a clear answer. It's never like, well, the director is the final say, so he should have done so and so.
Yeah.
Well, no, the director is not the final say at all.
That's for sure. Yeah.
The studio is the final say. Like, they can fire the director at any point,
as we've recently learned.
And yeah, so if they wanted more of this, and if it means that the movie is not as good, it's not apparent to them.
That's what they're gonna get.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think, like, it's hard to say, would you remake this? Because I think that it has been more or less the same story has been retold. I would like to maybe see somebody go back and remake this with an 80s sensibility, with a reverse retro futuristic, this is how we thought about things in the 80s, this is how it could have been made if we had then what we have, kind of like they did for Power Rangers, I would think that would get some interest.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay, so on a scale of 1 gun star to 10 gun stars.
So I've been thinking, so I'm gonna give it 7. So,
dang.
Yeah, so just in terms of how certain elements have held up, yes, I was a fan of this, but I was going in with my expectations like this is not going to hold up at all. And so I was kind of calibrating as the movie was going, and for like the first half I was at an 8, but then the second half kind of brought it down to a 7, and I think I've landed on a 7. So.
Okay. I think I had the opposite experience. I think I was going in expecting to really love this because so many people who I share a sensibility with were like, "Oh my god, yes, you're gonna be so great!" Like, I had the kids, we were having popcorn.
The ultimate 80s movie.
Yep.
Yeah.
And for me, it just never popped up above a 5.
Yeah. So yeah, I had that experience with. So last night I rewatched Inner Space, and I was like, I love this movie, and just kind of realizing some of this stuff is
it's not good.
Some of this stuff is bonkers. It doesn't make any freaking sense.
Yeah. Well, I had that experience also with Real Genius, which is a movie that I was obsessed with, and went back to rewatch and was just like, oh, it's not what I thought it was. Weekend at Bernie's is kind of the same thing. Like, you go back and you're just like, no. So that's the next series we have to do after the next one is like, oh, this is terrible. But yeah, so I'll say 5. I think.
That's fair. That's fair.
Okay. This is like a rare time when
we're
we're way off on our assessments. It might be the only time. So what is your deep cut recommendation?
So my deep cut, it's not super imaginative, but it's to find somehow, there's got to be one near you, but is to spend a little time at an arcade.
Oh, I love that recommendation. No, I really do.
So we've got so there's not, like in town, there's the Starfighter Lounge arcade, which is in Mesa. It's only open for like 3 or 4 hours a week.
That's correct.
Yeah. And that's a great way to go. But there's alternatives like, Castles and Coasters. They've got still a big arcade. And now there's
Golf
places.
Land
Yeah.
Still
there's
has a big free old school arcade.
And then now there's these arcade/bars like Bonus Round and Cobra Arcade.
The Grid.
That you can go to and you can drink and it's free. But yeah, the thing is, what I recommend is not just like play a couple of games, like force yourself to be there longer than an hour, and you're kind of forced like, well, okay, and actually play one game for, like 10, 20 minutes and then you kind of get over the whole idea of like, oh, these are so dated, and then you eventually just get into it, and you try to beat it, and then you start getting into that groove, and that's when you kind of, I felt like I tapped into my old child self from the arcade.
I love that. So we have
crack open a tab, play some Robotron, put on Duran Duran.
We did that this past weekend. We played
That's
on
from Ready Player One.
I know. Our old school Nintendo or original NES at a birthday party. So there's a mix of adults, mostly in their early 30s, late 20s, and then a bunch, well, not a bunch of, my son, who's 7, basically playing like Punch-Out and stuff on the original NES and just like really getting into it enjoying it and going back and forth. And there was definitely that sense of like, this is something that holds up. I love that as a recommendation. That's really good. So I had a hard time thinking of something. And so
try to be the last of something.
Yes. Outlive everyone. Well, I kind of went the opposite of being somebody who won't participate, right? So instead of being somebody who won't participate, I'm going to recommend participation.
Oh,
and
okay.
Specifically,
this movie made you angry with participation.
It did. So I'm going to recommend Gish, which is a scavenger hunt that happens every year. So by the time this episode comes out, it will have already happened for this year. But you can still participate for next year, and now you can download the app, which has puzzles and fun things throughout the year as you wait for the next hunt. But I recommend it because it is a sort of ongoing encouragement to get out of your element, do something weird, interact with the community, help people you wouldn't ordinarily help, see things you wouldn't ordinarily see, do things you wouldn't ordinarily do, and it all have very positive impactfulness on the world around you. So I recommend that, and you can find the app, just search Gish, Gish. And if you're familiar at all with the show Supernatural, the actor who plays Castiel, his name is Misha Collins. He's kind of the force behind it. Okay, awesome. So be sure to join us next time on the Most Excellent 80s Movies podcast when we're watching The Wizard from 1989. And hey, guess what? You can join us.
It's our first live show.
That's right. And we are doing it at the National Comedy Theater. Hang out with us while we record the podcast live on Sunday, August 18th, 2 p.m. here at the National Comedy Theater. It's free, but you can make a reservation. Make sure you get a seat at nctphoenix.com.
Remember, we're not going to be screening the movie, so come having seen the movie or come not having seen the movie and then go through the journey of what is this effing movie.
Yeah, either way, you're going to have a great time. But, like, seriously, just see this movie. It's available everywhere.
The Wizard, this is the debut of Super Mario Brothers 2. This is sort of like
Is it 2 or 3?
Was it 2 or 3? Maybe it was, 3. Well, it's one of them. We'll find out soon.
Yeah, we will.
But this is like an orgy of old school Nintendo and crazy 80s movie starring Fred Savage as the Wizard, the Nintendo Wizard.
His brother. ...
All
right, so thank you for
Close
listening.
It's been a while.
Find us all the places. We're at mostexcellentpod.com. We're on Facebook, Most Excellent 80s and Most Excellent Pod. Find Nathan at squishystudios.com or voyagetrekkers.com. Find me at nctphoenix.com. Give us a review.
At .com.
We'll still read it on Stitcher and iTunes. Thank you for joining us. Remember to keep the Most Excellent 80s Movies podcast motto in mind. Be excellent to each other, and
it'll be a slaughter.
That's the spirit.